Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to Fantasy NBA Tonight. My name is Aaron Bruski, and I need somebody to click the button at the beginning of the show so I don't stand here looking like a dolt as I try to retweet the show so everybody can join up and ask their fantasy questions on the Waiver Wire edition of Fantasy NBA Tonight, where we answer your waiver wire questions and hopefully get you guys set up for the week. Before I get into the business of the day, I'm going to take a quick moment here and congratulate our Dan Vesperis for the birth of his baby boy, Asher. Congratulations. And, I'm a little disappointed you didn't name him Bruski J. Rockefeller or Max Power or any of the other Simpsons-related names that you could have gone with. But Asher is an all right name, so I guess we'll live with that. Congratulations, Dan. And, let's get right into this. We got a little bit more action on the waiver wire here today. Our guy, Zane Denani, is publishing a piece. He just sent me over the prelims on it, and we'll go over some of the guys in his piece. I've noticed that things are definitely loosening up a bit as far as the waiver wire goes. And go ahead and get your questions in. A couple programming notes here. This is the last Fantasy NBA Today that is for free. So get your questions in now. And the in-season premium membership for Hoopball, it's on sale until tomorrow for $19.99, and that's that goes up to $29.99 after tomorrow. So you definitely want to get your orders in now. And I believe if you tweet at Vince Miracle, he might have some codes for you to get a couple bucks off. So tweet VM Center, that's V as in Victor, M as in Mary Center, who had a baby shower this weekend. And so it's like baby season here at Hoopball. I don't know what happened 9 months ago, but something exciting must have been happening because those guys all got it on. Anyway, all right, so let's get to the list. We have a really unordered list from Zane, so I'm going to kind of pick and choose where I jump around here. But we'll go down the list, and then we'll jump back and forth to your questions, and we will get in and out of here and be done by about 6:30 p.m. Pacific time, so I can get my waiver wires plays in for the National Fantasy Basketball Championship. And, just some background on me. I'm giving you guys the same ideas that I'll be using in those leagues, as well as some of the other ringer leagues that I play in. So, we try to, basically my philosophy of this is if I win, you win. If some of these guys use it against me, that gives them a little advantage, but oh well. All right, so let's get going on this list. Normally we'll go point guards, shooting guards, small forwards, and kind of just go through this methodically, but we're just going to jump around today. And then your questions are already rolling in, so I might try to move this along a little faster here so we can get to everybody's questions. All right, so some Nick Young sightings this week. That's pretty interesting. Swaggy P he's doing a veteran thing for this club. So is Lou Williams, and I'm pretty sure he might be on this list. If he's not, Lou Williams is a guy that I think the Lakers are playing right now, so this might either look really good or look bad in a few moments. But Lou Williams is a guy I think should be owned in all 12-team standard leagues. So if he's not owned in your league and you are not stacked at point guard or guard, I think he's a guy that you should definitely pick up depending on your options. But he should be owned in most, or if not all, 12-team standard leagues. But Nick Young, we've been getting quite a few questions about Nick Young. And I think you can add him if and only if you are streaming and if you are desperate for points and threes. Beyond that, I'm not getting into the Nick Young business. And what I think you're going to end up seeing with that Lakers squad is that they're going to play these veterans early and then shift everything probably about the 1/3 point of the season into more of the rookies or the younger guys. There are a lot of questions coming in, so I think I'm just going to jump right into your guys' questions here because I think we will actually touch on a lot of these guys. Okay, Terrence Jones just got dropped. It says, Tamakar, what do you reckon? Well, I don't know what I reckon. Worth dropping Damari Carroll for. Yeah, absolutely. Damari Carroll is having trouble. He's it's not just a knee thing, and I'm actually pretty damn concerned about that knee. He overdid it in the playoffs with the Hawks. He should not have been playing. The doctor should have held him back. I don't know how much damage he did to his career going forward. This is a guy that had pretty good athleticism, and now it doesn't seem like he's got that same athleticism. It seems like he's just a guy. So that's a tough break for Toronto. The good news for the Raptors, they have guys that can fill in. And Norman Powell, another weird thing with the Raptors is they actually didn't play him at all this year. And he has not done a single thing wrong in the eyes of owners, evaluators, the team, anybody you look at. And then he just falls off the face of the earth. So who knows if something happened over the summer, if he came in hurt, overweight. I can't put a finger on it with that guy as far as why he just got ditched early on in the grand scheme of things for the Raptors. But then he came back, he started, he had a good game. I don't know if he is on Zane's list because he's a pretty deep league guy. But Norman Powell I had at the back end of the top 150 in the Bruski 150, and it was because he was going to be able to plod his way to value. And the one thing that you like about a guy like that, other than or besides other plotters, or I should say in lieu of other plotters, is he would have tremendous upside if something ever happened to Kyle Lowry or DeMar DeRozan. And you can't really, I don't think you look at DeMar DeRozan as an injury risk, but you look at Kyle Lowry as an injury risk potentially. So that gives a little hidden upside. But with DeMarre Carroll, he's a guy that I just don't think you got to worry about in standard leagues. If he is hitting, he's going to be a top 100 guy. So I just don't think that you worry about, should I drop him? Should I just drop him? Get Terrence Jones. I know that he's not doing great things right now, and he's just as flaky as anybody in the league, but there's a lot more upside there. Okay. Richard Lee asks, I know you're not high on Ibaka this year, but is there any chance he becomes even a top 50 to 60 player? I think Orlando improves as the season comes along, so his play. Okay, so Ibaka, this isn't exactly a waiver question, but since I read it on air, we will go ahead and just roll with it. Ibaka's having a great game tonight against his old team, and so there will be some pro Ibaka sentiment out there. I just worry a lot about his stat set. When these big guys, they lose their explosion, they lose their power. Serge Ibaka had a knee issue that definitely I think it's on the radar. It's not something that we can just ignore. He dealt with it a little bit in the preseason. He's been on the floor since then. It's just this. It's a different Ibaka. I think that's been a pretty consistent takeaway from every game that we've watched. And you know what? Like a lot of guys, he's moved his game to the perimeter, which is going to extend his career, and good for him. But what it does for his fantasy values, it takes away his core competency of blocking and even steals, and moves him more towards 3-point shooting. It moves him away from the glass. I don't think that's going to help him in any way. Is there a chance he has a top 50, 60 value? Yeah, but I probably peg that chance at about 20%. Okay. Next question says, F. Cruz, Tuba Monarca, is Norman Powell and Dwight Powell worth a pickup? And how does it look for them rest of the season? So we covered Norman Powell there a little bit. Dwight Powell is, he surprised me when Dirk was out. He has been a guy that's been on all sorts of watch lists of mine. And you look at the physical package and he could definitely do a lot of different things in the court. And yeah, there's a chance that his shot is broken, but athletically, he should cover a lot of ground on the court. And that means lots of blocks, lots of steals, even if we haven't seen that pan out from him in his career. With the Dirk situation, you're really counting wins with the Mavs. If they start to fall out of contention, they might say, hey, you know what? We're going to throw in the towel this year, try to build for next year. And that's when Justin Anderson and Dwight Powell become really good plays. Anderson is a lot further ahead than Powell. Powell is going to really be a tough play the minute Dirk gets back. So I don't think Dwight Powell is worth a pickup unless you're in a deep league, like 16 to 18 to 20 teams. Obviously, dynasty leagues are a different story there, but there's just going to be too much of a gap. If you stash him, we talk about stashes a lot. There's a stashes section on the Hoopball website. When you mouse over fantasy, you can actually this is me, for me as a fantasy owner, what I wanted at the site was a way to quickly read if I want to know about ads and drops, if I want to know about buy low guys, if I want to know about sell high guys, if I wanted to know about stashes, I can click the link and just get all of the stashes. And what stashes you want is a late round guy with mid round potential. And what I mean by that is I want him to be producing at a late round right now. And then I want that mid round potential if he pops. It doesn't do me any good if you're Trey Lyles or Chris Dunn. If you're going to get 30 minutes and you're going to give me top 125 value, I have no business on my roster. So, you're looking at that for your stash potential. And with Dwight Powell, I don't think that you're going to get that. And one other thing you have to consider with stashes is how long do you have to hold them before they pan out? If you have to hold them for 10 weeks, 15 weeks before they pan out, you better be in a playoff league, because the ROI there is terrible. And that's what happened with Aaron Gordon last year. Is there was this constant parade of hold him advice, and then he got you top 100 value for like 8 weeks last year. That's not paying the bills. So I don't think Dwight Powell's paying the bills for you guys right now. Okay, next, baby. Is Baby a must-add as Paintball Mink 12? Must-add is a very strong term. It can get thrown around a little bit loosely in this industry, and must-add means, in my opinion, that this player is going to provide top at least 100 value, and I kind of like to reserve it for top 75 value. And I don't think there's any way in good faith that we can project Bebe at either of those levels, just because we don't know how much he's going to play. And yes, he's looked like the answer to Jonas Valanciunas' bad defense late in games. And one of the things that we've discussed about the Raptors is that they don't really need offense when they've got DeMar DeRozan, especially the way he's cooking right now. But when you have two ball-dominant guards in DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry, they're going to handle so much that it really minimizes the impact of a Jonas Valanciunas. And that's been, I think, we pin it on his bad defense, but it's almost more of a matchup, not even a matchup, a team composition issue. So it's a little unfair to pin it on Jonas. If he's not a lockdown defender, you almost are just putting too much offense on the floor, when you could go to a guy like Bebe or other players on the Raptors roster, Bismack Biyombo in the past, and get those defensive stops at the ends of games. Now, is Bebe responsible enough on the court to be able to continue to get 20-plus minutes per game? And if he gets 20+ minutes per game, is he going to bring you that top 100 value? I don't know. I know that he has been a stat factory in the past. He's definitely worth a speculative add. What kind of player are you dropping if you're going to be adding Bebe? Probably anybody with low-level, late-round value underneath the top 125. And what I would probably consider as the top 100 is looking at the asset specifically. Like a Kyle Korver might actually eke his way up to a top 100 value, but there's no upside there. I would drop a Kyle Korver in a second for somebody like Bebe, just to see what kind of upside I get out of it. Now, somebody like JJ Redick, who's a little bit of a better, healthier, younger version of a Kyle Korver, gets those statistics for you on an every night basis, with the fluctuations being just, does he hit 6 of 8 or 3 of 8, and then everything else is kind of what it is. I would give it a lot of thought. And if I needed what Bebe provides, if I need a center, I would absolutely drop somebody like a JJ Redick. So that kind of gives you a basis for where you might go with a Bebe. Obviously, if your team is stacked and you can afford to take some chances, he's the type of guy that you want to do that with, because in this league, we saw it with Hassan Whiteside. We've seen it in the past with guys like Rudy Gobert and Gorgie Jang. Is defensive players can rise up the ranks very quickly, and that's something you definitely want to take advantage of. Okay, moving on. Richard Lee says, oh, shoot, I forgot this is a waiver wire questions. LOL. That's all right, Richard Lee. Your next question, though, is, and you're getting some questions in here quickly, so congratulations. Is Kelly Olynyk worth a look in 10-team leagues? And I'm going to say this is probably not something you want to do. Kelly Olynyk is a fantasy, in the fantasy circles, that I run in, where everybody's looking for upside and kind of, really dialed into what these guys are worth. Everybody loves Kelly Olynyk, and that's because he is all upside with a stat set. The only problem is though he's playing very well, and it's very surprising to see him just come back from the shoulder injury and just come right out to shoot and, do Kelly Olynyk things. He's going to have to deal with the returns of Al Horford and Jay Crowder and Brad Stevens, and his propensity to run these bigs out in different ways every night. In a 10-team league, yes, he has the upside. I just don't think that upside equation is going to play out enough to justify your ad. So I'm going to say no in your 10-team leagues. It's a little too rich for my blood. Okay. Tamakar asks, I need steals quite desperately. Who do you like the most out of Danny Green, Tabo, Tony Allen, or Terrence Ross? Okay, this is a great question. Thabo Sefolosha came into this season just real hot, red hot. Tony Allen is your proverbial historic steals master, first team defense. Terrence Ross is just kind of hanging out there doing his thing. I don't think you could look at Terrence Ross here. I just don't like I don't like how stacked they are in Toronto. Maybe they showcase him. Maybe he can help you out. And I don't know what you're sacrificing here to get your steals. That's a big question mark that you've got to ask yourself, because a lot of these guys on this list are not going to be inside of the top 150 at the end of the year. Thabo is probably due for a regression. Danny Green is going to frustrate owners on a night-to-night basis, but we saw in the first game why you would own a Danny Green. In his second game, not so much. But I think the answer here is probably, I hate to say it, but Danny Green, even though his steals rate isn't as high as a Tony Allen or a Terrence Ross, I just don't like Tony Allen's knee could be completely shot. Who knows what kind of plan they're putting him on. Terrence Ross, you just don't know if the minutes are going to be there on a night-to-night basis. Thabo Sefolosha he's the guy that I'm considering if I'm not picking Green. But in the end, I want to get a guy that's going to play 27 minutes per night, who's young, who's healthy. Danny Green has shown he can get steals in the past, and if he can do everything, he's got that upside equation where he can be a top 50 guy, depending on if you're looking at 8 or 9 cat. I don't think it's happening this year. I have him rated at like top 100 in the Bruski 150, but I had Thabo rated a lot lower, probably around like top 160, something like that. So I'm going to take the higher rated player there. Okay. Let's see here. Let's jump over the list. Let's see if we're talking about all these guys on Zane Donani's list. So watch out for Zane's piece. He releases it every Sunday. It's called The Wire, and it goes through a lot of this, and it gives you guys a little bit of a different look, because I'm more of a roto guy. Zane is more of a head-to-head guy, and you will see some subtle differences in our opinions. And both he and his brother are two of the craziest, most intense fantasy basketball players that I know. So you definitely want to follow his advice. They give you real good advice there. Looking at this list, I see Mo Harkless's name, and that jumps out. Mo Harkless is, Al-Farouq Aminu got hurt. Mo is going to have he's going to alternate good games and bad games. I think this is a guy I want to have on my roster periodically throughout the season in a 12 to 14 team league, depending on the competition level. In a competitive league, obviously, he's going to be a little bit more valuable, because guys like this are hard to come by. And what you're basically hoping is that when you put your marker down on a Mo Harkless, that something else happens to make him pop. And we're talking about his injuries. So Al-Farouq Aminu, his injury would be an example of these guys getting their floors lifted to where you can start to look at them more as late-round producers with a hint of mid-round upside. So that's where I put Mo Harkless. He's a low-level asset without a doubt. The next on this list is Justin Hamilton. And we should stop the show real quick and make sure that you guys, if you don't own Justin Hamilton and you don't have a roster full of top 75 players, go get Justin Hamilton. I mean, it is mind-boggling to me that this isn't a thing. Like, that people haven't figured this out, that Justin Hamilton, even when he's not good, he's good in fantasy. He had 7 points and 4 rebounds the other day. And I want to say he had 4 money counting stats. I mean, who does that? That is absolutely phenomenal. He's great with percentages. And he's doing all of this in a backup role on a team it's got a couple injury risks. And it also is going to be playing for nothing down the stretch. So as long as he himself stays healthy, and all we've really seen out of him in the injury sense is a concussion 2 years ago. I mean, this is a guy that is it's like guaranteed money in a standard league. So I don't know why this is confusing for people. This is pure mathematics. It's readily available information that's out there. You can find it on our site. You can find it at sites like Basketball Monster. That's probably a good time to mention that we're actually adding some tools that are very similar to Basketball Monster, in the sense that you can do a start-sit calculation on your roster. For your weekly lineups, you could look at guys. Do they have 3 games? Do they have 4 games? Where does the value shake out? That to me is just wildly valuable. The schedule grid is something that we do, as well as the pickups of the night, and then shows like this. And I'm naming just a few things there. Using these tools, you should know that Justin Hamilton is a must-own player right now, and it's not even close, and it shouldn't have ever been close. And that's why he was late. He was a late-round value in the Bruski 150, is because you look at this stuff professionally and you go, you can't miss this. You cannot miss that. and it's been missed by quite a few sites. Stop what you're doing, go pick him up. Seth Curry is next on this list. Not a big Seth Curry guy, and it's not that. You see him play the Warriors, and you see some of the things that he did at the tail end of last year in Sacramento, and you can also see Dallas falling apart and giving him that window to produce. So I think that is, there's at least some reasoning behind a Seth Curry pickup, but I just don't see it once the Dirk gets back, for one, and then how does he handle playing in a 24-minute role, and can he be consistent, and does his stat set support fantasy value? I think the answers there all point toward keeping him in deep leagues only, 14, 16 teams, maybe even 18 teams, because, we've seen some pretty bad lines out of Seth Curry this year, and I don't see a whole lot that's going to change that as the year goes on, besides the scenarios that I just laid out. So Seth Curry, not that high on. And let's look at one more here, James Johnson, before we go back to the questions. James Johnson is a guy that, fantasy owners have been to the mat and back for James Johnson, and it's never quite panned out. He has one of those great stat sets, multiple categories. And the big thing with him is he either pisses his coach off or pisses his teammates off, or something in between, gets out of shape. There's a number of reasons that a James Johnson doesn't work out for you. He's never been able to sustain big minutes. And so all of that is a problem. But he plays in Miami that has zero depth. And this is why I've been telling you guys, get all those Miami assets, get as many as you can. Anybody that's, the reasonable ones, Deion Waiters is the only guy that would have name value that we're telling you not to go out and get. But all the rest of them should have been owned from draft day, because the minute one goes down, everybody else just picks up the slack. James Johnson's the next guy up. Now, Goran Dragic will be out for at least the first game of the week. So that gives James Johnson a chance to have at least a good kickoff game in a 4-game week. And that's, for a short-term pickup, we don't know when Goran Dragic is going to come back. But, for a short-term pickup, I'm he's on a bunch of my lists in these competitive leagues. He's more towards the bottom of the list. He'll be a guy that I throw a dollar bid out for. But yeah, you could find lightning in a bottle there. He has the stat set to support top 75 value if he's peaking. And so, James Johnson is a guy that should be looked at in that short-term sense. Okay, let's go back to the questions here. What do we got? We got Tamakar asks, I was able to grab Drew off the wire. Is it worth grabbing Tyreek Evans too? How will these guys play together when both healthy? Okay, so Drew Holiday should never be available on a wire. That's for one. Is it worth grabbing Tyreek Evans too? The thing with Tyreek is this is a tough one for owners, and it's a good question for Waiver Wire Show. Tyreek Evans is not somebody you want on your basketball team. And it's not that Tyreek's a bad guy, and it's not that he's out there just looking out for himself, but the way that he plays basketball is not conducive to winning. And so you're looking at this, and if you're the Pelicans, why do you want to introduce that to your roster? Why does that make sense for you? And I don't think it does. I think that they will go to him when he's healthy, if he gets healthy, and they will give him every opportunity to pump up his trade value, and then they will try to sell him for whatever they can get, or at least they should be. And so I don't know. I don't like owners, buying into that equation unless they look at that and they go, that would work for me. I can take that what if on a Tyreek in an 8-cat league where his turnovers aren't killing you. And, I'm looking for top 75 upside. I can take that. And so, you know what? If that type of equation works out for your roster, give them a look. But, this kind of like aggressive stashing, I don't think that owner should be doing that right now. Okay. Next question up is Nogueira for real. Drop Jones or Bismack, 9-cat head-to-head standard. Yeah, I would drop either. I'd definitely drop Jones for Nogueira, pardon me. And I'm not too keen on dropping Bismack right now. I think that he's going to pop, and it could be at least the half season mark. And I think that he can hang on to enough low end value to make that worth owners' time, because we saw him late in the year last year, and he's going to be able to, he can put up some really big numbers real quick for you. I think he could be putting up, the kind of like 12 and 20 with 3 blocks type games. And especially if you're in a playoff league, you should definitely try to hold on to him at any cost. But even in a roto league, I think that type of upside, justifies the time that you have to kind of keep him on your bench while this sort of, I don't know what you want to call Orlando, while it all plays out. Next question that comes in is from Roderick de Guzman. Same guy's a different question here. We got, is Justin Hamilton better than Nogueira? And yeah, the answer is yes. And the reason why is because we're hoping Nogueira, can do what Hamilton is already doing. And so that in its own answers the question right there. So it's definitely Hamilton over Nogueira. All right, let's go back to Zane's list and let's check it out. We've got next up here to discuss is Iman Shumpert. Now, Shump comes off of a big game today. I don't have the stat line in front of me, but I want to say it was something in the ballpark of 15 points and then multiple threes and some steals and some other counting stats. That is fool's gold at a fantasy league. So we're not looking at Shump, and this is where Zane's probably trying to snake some extra threes and steals for one of his teams. So, that's not how I play, but a lot of you guys out there do play that way, and I respect that. All right, so Patrick Patterson, I think Patrick is going to slow down. He's been at a peak, and, as they do get healthier in Toronto, especially down the road, if Jared Sullinger can come back. And there's no, reason to think that he can't, but, he's got to come back at some point. So I'm not bending over backwards to add a Patrick Patterson unless it's on a short-term basis and a stat set works for me. Andre Roberson is a guy that's on a few of my lists. I'm kind of a Roberson fan. And what I like about Roberson is he's got the potential to get all those money counting stats. And it hasn't panned out so far. He's more or less like a top 175 value, which means he's built for 16-team leagues right now. But in a 16-team league, he's a must-own guy. And the reason is because if he's already giving you late-round, low-end production and he has the potential to improve and do more, that's the kind of guy you want at the bottom of your roster. In a 12-team league, he's not quite there. They are playing right now, and I think he got off to a hot start. So I will look over here at my grid and see how he is doing since we are a live show. And what it appears is that he is at 10 points, 1 steal, 4 blocks, 2 threes. And that's what we're talking about here, folks. And it's not going to be like this every night, but this is why he was on all my lists. And so is he worth a spec ad? Yes, he's worth a spec ad. And that's for a 12-team league. I would not be giving up anything of greater than top 125 value, I think. Maybe top 110. Something, how I'm going to try to hedge here a little bit, but I just, we're still talking about an asset that's unproven that could level out at top 150. So you definitely don't want to give somebody up like Jordan Clarkson, who's usually projected as a top 100 guy on a per game basis. So that's the story on Andre Roberson. Jared Dudley had a big game on Saturday. Jared Dudley, they're in Phoenix, they are going to be a mess, and they're going to play a guy like Jared Dudley, and it's not going to make any sense. And he's going to do what he did in Washington there for a little bit, was have some weeks of productivity. It's just, how do you predict this? I don't think you can. The minute that Tyson Chandler comes back, it gets a little bit more complicated. I just can't get behind a Jared Dudley ad. Maybe he does it for 4 games straight, and we have to have this conversation again. I just can't do it. Domantas Sabonis, might as well check in on him too. Domantas has only got 3 points, 2 boards, and I'll make that 1 money counting stat with a 3-pointer. Domantas is a nice young player that also appeared at the back end of the top 150, and he's going to be inconsistent. And the reason why he made it there is I figured he would eke his way to that low end top 150 ranking. But he's actually been better than what I expected. And so maybe he can be a little bit better than that. you're just seeing what happens to rookies in this league that aren't dominant. They just up and down. They can get into foul trouble one night. Sabonis had a couple of those already. And so I think you're looking at a 14 to 16 team kind of league that you're looking at adding him in. Larry Nance. Larry Nance he's doing well. You know, he's at about a top 80 to 100, top 110 value right now, despite playing very low minutes. I think he's in like the 22-minute range. Well, he's a guy that we've always written up as a great stat set guy for fantasy leagues. We've always just kind of worried about his his injuries, really. And other than that, you know, you don't see anybody really, you know, that can kind of compete for the minutes he currently has. So I'm good with Larry Nance as an ad. It's not comfortable because you don't like the small sample sizes here, as well as the low minute totals. But I think I think he's a good ad. I think that he's like getting pretty damn close to being a must-own guy in 12-team leagues. He's pretty close. He's not quite there, but give him one more good game. Like let's do a Larry Nance check here tonight. What do we got for Larry Nance? Is Larry Nance going to make me look good? 6 points, 4 rebounds, 0 money counting stats, and they're in the fourth quarter there, and he has played 19 minutes, so he might play another 5 minutes in this game. So he's going to make me look bad with that game, but this is what top 100 players do. They are top 50 guys one night, maybe top 75 guys, and then they're top 150 guys the next, and then you just see how those numbers all pan out. So, but yeah, he's getting there close. Yeah, and Robert Cassett says, yeah, Larry getting pretty good. I agree. Larry is getting pretty good. But you factor in the injury risk. There's too many question marks there to make him a must-own player in 12-team leagues. So, but he's definitely getting there on the cusp. But Wilson Chandler shows up on this list. Yeah, you want in on Wilson Chandler. I haven't looked at his per-game rankings because I just looked at his numbers and I figured, you know what, that's something I want on my team. However, it's a short-term asset, to be 100% clear. There is no doubt about that. Short-term asset. They are showcasing him. He would need multiple injuries to not see his value eroded over time in the logjam that is known as Denver. And he's also an injury risk, a grade A injury risk. He's had more mid-body injuries, hamstrings, hips, adductors, all that stuff. That's Wilson Chandler in a nutshell. So, yeah, short-term pickup. So you got to weigh your options there. John Lure is a great fantasy wire question. What about John Lure? And this is what I'll tell you about John Lure. That contract, you know, it seemed like maybe it was a little bit of an overspend. You know, and I'm a big John Lure guy. I was telling the Sacramento Kings fans to tell them, you know, stop talking about Ryan Anderson like that's a thing and go out and get John Lure. They got off that whole wagon of getting a stretch 4. And then Detroit picked up John Lure. Now, Stan Van Gundy loves this guy, loves and tells him to shoot more. He's playing 26 minutes per game. And this is with everybody healthy, more or less. I mean, yeah, Reggie Jackson's out, but, you know, that's affecting the backcourt more than it's affecting the front court. And, yeah, that might actually be a concern for Lure when Reggie Jackson gets back because he might see a little bit of a decrease in touches. But I'm not worried about that stuff right now. And Lure is hovering right where he was hovering last year when he was getting 26 minutes per game, and we put him on like the top 60 to 90 range of the go forward Bruski 150 after the All-Star break. Earl Watson did not comply. He wanted to play 5 centers at a time. He wanted to do all this weird stuff. He wanted to play his buddy Ronnie Price, and John Lure never really got a lot of pub. Now we're seeing him do exactly what we knew he could, and he looks like he's improving too. And he also looks like a guy that could be a serious low-end big man in this league. He could stick the 3. He can rebound. He can do a little bit scoring the ball. He could definitely move his feet. I think that he's here to stay. And so I don't think it's a question of should you add him. I think he's a must-own player, and I think that he's probably a must-own player. I'm going to hold off on the 10-team, but he's definitely a must-own player in a 12-team league. without a doubt. And so who are you dropping to go get him? Is anything that's in the, anything in the top 125, drop, no questions asked. Anything in the top one, outside of the top 100, I think you can make a pretty good argument that John Lure has more upside. But again, it just comes down to the player. If you're looking at Jordan Clarkson, for instance, I don't think you drop Jordan Clarkson to get John Lure. But if you're dropping somebody that's, I don't know, who's iffy, somebody in the top 100 who's iffy. Let's go like Larry Nance. Say you're sitting there holding on to Larry Nance. He's putting up top 100 numbers. Yeah, absolutely. He's gone. Cut him. John Lure is going to definitely be a better asset. So that's a story on John Lure. What do we got next here? Patty Mills Patty's a pretty simple story at this point. He's going to be somebody you want to own in a top, or probably in a 14 to 16 team league. In a 12 team league, if he's looking at a 4-game week where you want to stream him, fine. But his value doesn't compute or doesn't add up, make sense, whatever you want to call it, until you get to 14 to 16 team leagues. And it's not a knock on Patty. He's having a great year, and he's going to continue to have a great year. It's just in that system with his stat set, it's not going to compute up to 12-team ownership. What do we got? Warriors need to trade KD to the Heats. Robert, I don't know what you're smoking. They just legalized it out in California, but you might be smoking some of that sticky icky if you're talking about that stuff. What do we got next? Etuan Moore. He is another guy that's going to bounce on and off the waiver wire quite a bit. He's got big volume games, but he also needs big volumes of minutes to have even late round value in standard leagues. So you're going to get a lot of Etuan Moore showing up on your watch lists and waiver wire discussions like this. And so you got to see if New Orleans down the stretch goes into what we saw last year, then I think he could be a guy that ends up on rosters with some more consistency, but he's a late round guy and nothing else. Amir Johnson shows up on this list. Amir Johnson is he's a top 100 guy in 9-cat leagues, and he does this every single year. It doesn't matter what's going on. He's going to be a 21 to 25 minute per game guy, and he's going to get you that top 100 value. And it's almost like a rule of fantasy basketball is that's going to happen. So if that works for you, give him a look. I know head-to-head owners aren't thrilled with the lack of pop in his game, but it just depends on how much you believe in whether or not pop is needed in a head-to-head battle and what your punt builds might be. Josh Richardson, and I'm a little disappointed in the chat room. We have a lack of questions here. I would like to see more questions in these chats. So you guys get those questions coming in. Josh Richardson is a must-own player in all standard formats. So stop what you're doing and go pick him up. Drop anybody else with less than top 75 value for Josh Richardson. Kelly Olynyk, we discussed earlier. Mike Muskie. They love him in Atlanta, and it's because A, he can rap, and B, he got salty when they screwed up his rap during last year's All-Star game, and C, because he has a great fantasy stat set, and all of the Atlanta guys read hoopball. So the Mike Muscala fantasy question is not that crazy. I think he's got top 200-ish value right now. And so that's not obviously cutting it in top, or probably 12 or 14 or maybe even 16 team leagues, but give it some time. It's interesting that they traded away Walter Tavares, and it's a bummer for us fantasy stat heads that are, looking at Tavares kind of like we looked at Hassan Whiteside after a few games. The blocks and boards combo is very appealing, but he's gone. And that makes you think that they like what they see in certain guys like Mike Muscala. So I think that Dwight Howard's not a very healthy guy. Mike Muscala could come in and end up being a guy that, makes waves in fantasy leagues. So, you got to wait until you're about 16 to 18 teams deep before you're considering a stash there. But he's definitely got upside. What else do we got? Robert Cousette says, sure. Thank you very much for following the show, Robert. And it's definitely, we like to get the feedback. I'll put it that way. What else do we got? We got Buddy Hield. Buddy Love. Buddy Hield is one of my guys. He's got a top 125 rating in the Bruski 150. and he's got a shooting stat line out of college that I believe was 50, 40, 90, 50%, or maybe even like 50, 50, 90. First of all, yeah, you can say that's against college competition, and you can dismiss it, and you say all those numbers are going to go down. And you could look at his current shooting percentage, I think it's like 35%, and say, you know, there's no way he's going to shoot that well. I think once he figures it out, he has CJ McCollum-like potential. And it's not hard to see that happening sooner rather than later. I think that the situation in New Orleans fits him perfectly. He's going to get a lot of touches early to help season his game. I think by the end of the season, when all these guys get hurt and he's the only one there, you could be looking at the Buddy Love show. So do you want Buddy Hield on your roster? Absolutely. I'm sitting there with a couple rosters that really need good players now, and Buddy Hield's only putting up like top 175 to top 200 value right now. I'm holding Buddy Hield, and it's pretty crazy. Like it's, my concern with Hield and whether or not this is going to pan out for me is, can he give good ROI on this hold? And so I want to see continued progress, and I think he's qualified so far, but I'm not 100% sure that he's qualified so far. So that's going to be, whether or not this works out for me or not with this hold of Buddy Hield. So I think that, but as far as the question, can you pick him up as a speculative ad? Absolutely. You can definitely pick him up as a speculative ad. No questions asked. Is he a must-add guy? No. New Orleans has 4 games this week. That gives you a little bit of wiggle room there if you're trying to get some production out of him this week. But yeah, I just think with that, the shooting lines are what, if he could come in and be a 44% shooter like CJ McCollum was last year, he's obviously one of the best shooters coming out of college. So he's going to be able to stick the three at a pretty high rate. And then he's going to be able to hit his free throws. He's got creativity with the ball. I just think that he's got the whole package, and what better place to be able to get playing time and see it come to fruition than New Orleans. Moving on, Allen Crabbe. Allen Crabbe is good at basketball. That's all you need to know. He's good at basketball. So Mo Harkless was on this list. We discussed him earlier. Mo Harkless is not as good as Allen Crabbe, and it's not even close. Allen Crabbe could go play for another team right now. Like if he was in Brooklyn, you guys would be, it would be a must-known situation. He would be one of probably their primary scorer. I know Brook is Brook, but like as far as handling the ball and getting things done and getting the ball to Brook and everything that comes with it, that'd be Allen Crabbe. And he is going to toil behind who's, but one injury and then the floor is at a top 125 level. And that's all you're looking for in fantasy leagues. If you get that floor to the top 125 level, then everything else above that is all upside. If your team can't afford, or if your team doesn't want to have a top 125 guy on its roster, you're either in a shallow league or an uncompetitive league. And so in most cases, Allen Crabbe can help you out. And so, yeah, I've got Allen Crabbe high on my lists. He was dropped in a couple of these championship leagues, and they play more like 14-team leagues. They're 12-team leagues with 16 players on the roster, and so they're 192 players deep. So they play like deeper leagues, and he's on the list. He's going to be pretty high up there. Sergio Rodriguez shows up on the list. Actually, before Sergio, let's get to a few questions here because we're running out of time. I want to make sure I answer all of your questions, and also remind you guys today is the last day for free content on the show side. So Fantasy NBA Tonight is moving to a paid show just for our paid subscribers. The in-season premium membership is on sale through tomorrow for $19.99. The price goes up to $29.99. Hit Vince Miracle at VM Center if you want to get a promo code to get a couple dollars off. He's the one running that stuff. I don't know what our promo codes are. If you hit me up, I'll ask Vince. I'll get you the promo code, get you a couple bucks off. But yeah, it's on sale for one more day. Check that out. All of these after the games end or while the games are ending, these shows, which are so critical if you're a fantasy owner and you want to get immediate feedback on what do I do? Nikola Jokic went for like 4 points, 2 rebounds, and 1 assist. Screw you, Bruski. You messed up my entire season. What do I do now? Those shows give you the easy, interesting, or probably immediate feedback that you need to make decisions. And that's why we made it a premium product, is we want to recognize and reward the people that support us as a company, as an organization, and get you guys that immediate information and give you the kind of the interaction and the flavor. You can't put everything into a blurb. You can't, when you read a blurb, you might read it differently than somebody else might read it. When you get to hear my voice, you get to see me, see this beautiful face, see me tell you, don't worry about Nikola Jokic. He will be just fine. It's a buy low moment. Go out there and make those offers. Fleece these people that are panicking. That's good. You can hear it in my voice. Go fleece them. Fleece them. Fleece them. You can hear it in my voice. It's a lot better than just a blurb. So all this stuff is going to paid at night. We'll still have the daytime shows. We're going to have a lot of guests throughout the industry, and keep bringing you. We want to make this content the best in the industry. I feel like we're pretty good right now, maybe the best, but we want to continue to improve so you guys can keep coming back, and most of all, win your leagues. I had a guy email me the other day. Hopefully he's watching the show. I haven't had a chance to get back to him, but he's pretty high up in the movie industry. He said that reading my stuff helped him win his leagues and talk trash, and it gave him the ability to get a script read and so on and so forth. And now he's kind of a big name guy in Hollywood, and winning this stuff feels good. It's great for camaraderie, but winning is what we want to help you guys do above all with all this stuff. So check out the free stuff, check out the paid stuff. If you support us, thank you very much. We're just all about building this site to be the best that we can be, the best independent site out there, not affiliated with the 3 or 4 letter networks, which may or may not be, around in a couple years with the way things are going with that, with the industry and the content model. So we want to be at the forefront of this, and we always want to put you guys first. All right, enough of the shilling, as the great Dan Bespers would say. Back to your questions. Where are we at? What do we got? Would I consider picking up Patrick Beverley, 12-team, 9-cat head-to-head? That is F. Cruz Tuba Monarca. Yeah. Okay, so Patrick Beverley in a 9-cat league especially, obviously James Harden has got all the turnovers. He's averaging 6 turnovers a game. Who does that? And that's really wild stuff going on in Houston. Completely unprecedented, very early season-ish. I don't know if it can continue, and the sell high discussion on James Harden is something for another show. But Patrick Beverley's already been cited as a guy that could come in and start to take some of the load off of James Harden's shoulders. So he's going to come in. I don't see why he can't be productive in this offense. I don't see why he can't return to those numbers that were top 100-ish in nature. Yes, he's an injury risk. That's probably the biggest deal with him. But in a 9-cat head-to-head league, yeah, I have no problem with you picking him up. I just wouldn't drop anybody outside of, say, a top 120 value with, a well-situated top 120 value. If you got a top 100 value and he's starting to get shaky, definitely I think you could also make a look at or take a look at Patrick Beverley and make it work for you. So that is my take on former Bruski 150 cover player Patrick Beverley. All right, what do we got? Not a waiver wire question, but here goes. I've been wondering your take on Aaron Gordon. You have him really high in the B150. I feel his rebounds aren't there because of his small forward position. Don't worry about Aaron Gordon. I know this is a waiver wire question. We'll just go through this real quick. Don't worry about Aaron Gordon. He's going to be fine. I wish I was more aggressive on his B150 ranking. He will be fine. He looks great out there. Wait for guys to get traded and or hurt, and things are going to get even better. Last year wasn't the year to pick Aaron Gordon up. This is totally the year to do it, and he will be fine. So don't worry about that there. You guys might, I hate to turn you away from my show, but you might flip on another channel and look at the Thunder Magic game, which is 117 to 117 tied up with about 10 seconds left. All right, so let's get to the next questions here. You love Cody Zeller, I know. Oh, yes, I do. Which would be a must grab if he and Justin Hamilton are both on the wire? I think it's Justin Hamilton. It's really, with Cody, he had a terrible game. I looked at the stats, and I don't know if that was foul trouble. He had 4 fouls, 14 minutes, practically nothing. Against a team like Cleveland, bad things can happen. I'm not going to panic on Cody Zeller. A lot of this depends on if you're an 8 or a 9-cat format. He is a 9-cat guy, most definitely. So I have him in a couple 8-cat leagues, and I'm a little less aggressive with how I deploy him. I'm not worried about Roy Hibbert at all. And with Cody, the biggest issues are his own health He plays in a front court with health issues. This is a team that actually has injury risks kind of everywhere. Even Kemba Walker, as much as I love him, he is, that knee is something that I worry about. So anyway, like up and down the roster, they can have injuries hit at any time, and that just opens things up for Cody Zeller. I think he's probably going to average 26 minutes per game this year. If things go haywire, he can go up to 29 minutes per game pretty easily. And if he does that in an 8-cat league, I think he's going to have top 90 value on the year. In a 9-cat league, I think that gets closer to 80. Now, Justin Hamilton is already giving you these numbers, and he hasn't had any of these what-ifs that would work out in his favor pan out yet. So I think, and he's also the healthier player, I think it's easy. It's Justin Hamilton. And I know he's not getting love at other sites, so you might hear this stuff and say, that sounds a little bit crazy, but it's definitely Justin Hamilton, man. All right, next question. Any short or long-term value for Tomas Satoransky? What do we got? 12-team Roto League. Definitely no short-term value because John Wall's coming back. And we got to remember, Scott Brooks here is terrible with this stuff. He is a rookie killer. He will play Marcus Thornton 24 minutes a game until he dies. I believe, and sorry for the delay here, Serge Ibaka just killed his old team. So if you're a Serge Ibaka owner right now, what I want you to go do is go make an offer. Send Serge Ibaka, send that offer. I don't know what his line was, but I'm sure it was off the chain. Let's get a quick look at his line here. And this is one of the great things about Fantasy NBA tonight is you can actually take this information and immediately turn dividends. And here I am looking for his stats under the Oklahoma City side. I'm a dumbass. 29 points, 9 rebounds, 4 blocks, 12 of 18 shooting, 2 threes. I want you to go take that offer, make it. I want you to go ask for a top 50 player. If you want to reach into the top 40, if you want to reach into the top 30, if you think that everybody is enamored with Serge Ibaka, this is your time to cut your losses and get value in return. Top 50 value, folks. I might even feel comfortable telling you to go get a top 60 value. And you know what? If it's a well-situated top 75 value where there is upside built in that equation, I mean, we're talking guys like D'Angelo Russell. We're talking guys like Devin Booker, guys that are down at the bottom of the 150 because their percentages aren't right or whatever the hell's going on with them. Go out there, make these deals happen. I want you to stop what you're doing. Go send those offers right now. This is fool's gold, people. Even if he keeps up the health, even if he keeps up these big lines, we know he's not going to be blocking this much every game. We know that this was a revenge game where he wanted to go out and answer some of his critics. Whether or not he can do that on an every game basis, he would have to be playing the center position. Unfortunately for him, Bismack Biyombo and Nikola Vucevic will always be playing those positions. So he will never, ever have the access to blocks that he once had. And if he did, he doesn't have the athleticism to go out there and get them. So this is what good fantasy owners do. You know what the situation is with Serge Ibaka. Go make that offer right now and tell them they got 2 hours to accept. Because in 2 hours, everybody and their mother is probably going to get out there and they're going to cool off. And then by the time the next game hits, hopefully for your sake, he continues to hit. But if he doesn't, all this goodwill is gone. Just zap, gone. So that's my little Serge Ibaka rant. What do we get? We got, let's see here. Yeah, you guys are stoked for Ibaka too. That's awesome. That's good for him though. You know what? And it sucks because I was always a Serge Ibaka backer, and he actually never really panned out for me in the Bruski 150. But some of you guys are funny talking with each other. And sorry for trailing off here. I'm just scanning through these questions here because I want to get to all of them. I don't know how to say this name, but it's like Gadasupidu. I have a hard time seeing Buddy get the leash he needs because it's such a logjam in New Orleans in the backcourt. Archie, I'm not counting Archie for what it's worth, but I get what you're saying. Tim Frazier, who I think is a pretty good player. Drew Holiday, obviously he's Drew. That's one more, Galloway, et cetera. I get what you're saying, but look at what Miami's got going on. And they're just playing the guys that can actually play basketball, that are healthy, that can be a threat. I mean, you've got Josh Richardson playing the 1. He could easily be playing the 3 for them. And you know what? It wouldn't be shocking at some point if he's playing the damn 4. And that's what happens when your team sucks and you've only got a handful of players that can play. So I think that you might see some version of that in New Orleans. And yeah, some of those other guys can score, so it does take a little bit away from Buddy Hield. But, I mean, he's their future, and I think he'll be the most talented amongst them. Whether or not he gets to that point this year, I just like the fact that he's going to get early chances. We're already seeing he had a season career high 18 points the other day. The other stats weren't there. But, I mean, man, especially if Anthony Davis goes down, they're just going to need his scoring. So, yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying. That's why he's not a must-own player, are those question marks. But, he's somebody who's going to hang on. I'm going to hang on this week with Buddy. So we'll see how that goes. John Henson started last game as best brisk guy. Worth keeping an eye. You know what? I don't think he's best brisk guy, and you can correct me, or the best brisk could correct me if I'm wrong on that. But, man, talk about wasted fantasy talent. And I just don't know if he's got it in him at this point in time to really turn the corner. Has he improved his game? Is he able to do the things that he couldn't do that have taken him off the floor? And then what about Jason Kidd? I mean, he's a mess from a fantasy perspective, and not 100% sure that he's really got it figured out from a real life coaching perspective as well. So, I'm just not telling people to go get John Henson at this point. And so, yeah, I mean, it is what it is. Maybe he'll prove me wrong. I hope he actually can, because I'd love to see John Henson be a good fantasy guy. He's got great blocks, boards, the efficiency's there. And, that's the kind of stuff you're looking for. RHJ is available. Go get him. My worst players are Terrence Jones, Booker. I don't know which Booker you're talking about. It's so sad. Trevor Booker's got 3rd-round value, and Devin Booker's got like low-end top 150 value, and that'll definitely switch spots. Eric Gordon has come off a big line. Eric Gordon's probably got more trade value than he does real-life value, but he had a huge game, 7 threes the other day. Good for him. Total injury risk, though. I think you're dropping Terrence Jones here. RHJ, I mean, we've seen the stat set. We've seen what it produces, and you just don't have the baggage that you've got with Terrence Jones. And I was watching Terrence Jones the other day. He just didn't look that good. I don't know what's up with him. There's not a lot of reporting on it, but he just does not look like, if you looked at him in the playoffs a couple of years back when Houston was good, he was sharp, at least to the point where you could say, yeah, that guy's got a future. I don't see that anymore. So I don't know. Terrence Jones, stat set good, player bad, injury risk, yes. Question marks all over the place. All right. What do we got as we wrap this show up? RHJ over TJ William. Who the hell is TJ William? Dave R., you're going to have to hit me again on that. TJ William. Man, I don't know who that is. 12-team 9-cat head-to-head. End of the roster, guys. Who would you pick up? Alan Crabb, Marquise Chris, Etuan Moore, Kelly Olynyk, JaMychal Green. All right, let's cross some guys out of that list. JaMychal Green, I'm crossing off. Etuan Moore, I'm crossing off because he doesn't have enough upside. That leaves me with Crabb, Olynyk, and Chris. Chris he's on my watch list, but when you look at what he's getting in terms of minutes and his stat set and everything, and he's even had some good games to kind of boost some of those numbers. He's not quite there value-wise. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take Alan Crabb and Kelly Olynyk. Hopefully you catch lightning in a bottle with Olynyk. He needs 24 minutes per game to be a top 150 value, kind of without a doubt. If he could get the 24 minutes, he'll be in a top 150 position with a lot of upside beyond that. And so that's your hope there. The only problem is obviously that Al Horford guy. And then, you've got Tyler Zeller that can spell him, and, Amir Johnson as well. Not to mention if they play small and start playing guys at the 4. All right, what do we got as we close up this show of Fantasy NBA tonight? Wasn't high on Ibaka. I'm just saying he hits his game winner against the Thunder. Yeah, I don't think I didn't think you were high on Ibaka. I thought you were high on that game winner. What do we got? I was answering Williams. Yes, Dave R. We are clear on that. If you're still on, what's your take on Depot? Wildly frustrating still, and it doesn't feel like it ever changed with the way Russ goes. Yeah, Russ is going to be a hard guy to change. Depot is what I think you're going to see is a slow transition of ball handling stats from Russell Westbrook over to Victor Oladipo, and that's just going to take place over the course of the year. So how does that pan out for Oladipo's value? It might not be as good as what we thought early in the season, but you know what? It's early. You know, if you took a 10-game sample on any of these guys from top to bottom in the league, you could take a 10-game sample on any of them. Chris Paul would look like a top 50 guy, and you'd be like, oh, that guy sucks. So it's still a small sample size for these guys, and we have to kind of maybe not step off the ledge just yet with Depot. I mean, I think he's got like a top 60 floor, and then from there, you know, it just gets hard to climb into the top 40, top 30 ranks, you know, and then once you get beyond that, obviously it gets even harder, which is why a guy like Giannis Antetokounmpo, you know, I discussed him in a blurb the other night. You know, he's killing it, and he's still only top 7 or 8 value. And, you know, once he's not blocking and stealing 4 shots per game, you know, where does he land? So, you know, it gets harder as you climb up the ranks. But I think Depot has a top 60 floor. And I think those stats slowly transition as Russ and the team gets more comfortable with Oladipo, and then Russ will just kind of slowly let off and hand him over those stats. Yes, okay. Joel Embiid, top 20 dynasty, top 10. I think Embiid in a dynasty league, he's easily top 20. Depends on when you're drafting and how you're drafting. And I just saw a funny question come in. Yeah, I mean, we just don't know where the ceiling is with this guy. Obviously, health is an issue, but at some point in time, you have to throw caution to the wind and say, pardon me as I burp up my lunch. You just got to throw caution to the wind and say, what is it that this guy can do? He can shoot a little. So now you're talking about a big man that likes to play in the post, likes to block shots, likes to rebound, likes to shoot the ball well. I mean, where's the hole in the game? I mean, that's where you're at with that. So top 20 dynasty, top 10. Yeah. I mean, at this point, you're just arguing over known assets. And then are you trying to win now? Are you trying to win later? All that stuff comes into play, and it makes it hard. You know, you're going to rank him above Steph. Oh, if you're winning now, you're going to take Steph. So, you know, so on and so forth. Dave R asks, can I elaborate on him for this year? Yeah, sure. I think he's a must-own player. I mean, he's lightning in a bottle at a level that we've not seen out of a rookie with two years off. I mean, it's really unprecedented. You know, talk about the year of the unprecedented. So, yeah, he's must-own player. Find somebody to drop. Nemanja, we're going to close it out on this because I got to make my waiver wire plays over the National Fantasy Basketball Championship, and I don't want to screw that up. So this will be the last question. Before I answer this question, go and if you haven't subscribed to the in-season membership and you want to support the show, it's $19.99 today, tomorrow, and then it goes up to $29.99. A lot of cool and interesting things going on at Hoop Ball. We keep adding members to the team, and the talent is, I mean, I come from a place where we had like 4 of us. You know, we're 25 deep over here. Everybody's working within their core competency, and we got a lot of talent. And so I'm really excited. And Dave mentions, you know, they liked him over Jonas. I like him over Jonas too. I mean, Jonas has issues, but I like him over Jonas too. And that's a tough one, but that's why you play the game. Is sometimes you got to gamble, and I think that he's going to make it work. And that's it's rough, but you can replace top 60 value with Jonas Valanciunas. It's not, you know, you don't want to throw that away, but that's not irreplaceable. So, but Jonas will never ever be a top 20 guy, and so I think Embiid on a per game basis will definitely be top 50 this year, even if he plays 24 minutes a game. So, how many games off? How much does it hurt you? Does he get a serious injury? All of those things are, you know, part of this whole thing. But yeah, what happens if he starts playing 30 minutes a game? I mean, or 28? I mean, you're talking about a guy that could be a top 10 player. We just don't know. So you won't get that with Jonas. I'm gonna take the risk. I'm gonna assume the risk, and I'm gonna try to get that upside, because that upside is really hard to find. It's impossible to find. You know, Hassan Whiteside changed leagues, you know, when he started doing what he was doing. Okay, Nemanja Bjelica. He is a terrible permanent player. The Wolves are stacked. Don't touch him no matter what the other sites want you to think. You know, there's a couple Nemanja Bjelica fans out there. You know, it's something that irks me, because it's like you make a prediction once and then you don't have the cojones to get off your prediction when it sucks. Myers Leonard sucked for me a few years ago, and I had to own it, and I owned it within a couple weeks. So you guys didn't keep going back to the well. Don't keep going back to the well for Nemanja Bjelica. Don't listen to the Chris Dunn stuff. Don't listen to the Trey Lyles stuff. The big thing about being a fantasy analyst is getting off your bad predictions as soon as possible. So on that note, I'm going to close it out. Thank you very much for being with us tonight. Hopefully you guys do subscribe so we can, do this show together more often. And if not, if you don't subscribe to the paid product, we've got a lot of free shows, obviously a ton of content that's coming out. Follow us at Hoopball Tweets. I'm Aaron Bruski. You guys enjoy the rest of your Sunday night. Be good to each other, and we will see you guys soon.